Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. I am trying to make sure that we are up and running on all of our streaming platforms, but I'm not sure if that is happening. So just bear with me for just a second. Well, I don't want to belabor the point. I'll work on that in the background as we get going. So with that being said, let me welcome my co-host, Chuck Snow, and let me welcome our guests both to the show. Good evening, Chuck. Good evening, Mark.
Hey, thank you so
Good
much for
evening,
having me. Good
Rico. Good
evening.
evening, Mark.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to try to work on this issue in the background. I'll let you guys get started really quickly, but I'll be listening in and I'll be right back. But you'll see me, but I'm working on trying to get this other
Okay,
platform up and running.
we had a couple of technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen, so we apologize, and we are honored tonight to have Dr. Mark Manera join us. He is with Supply Chain Fitness. Mark has all of our answers, how to maybe take off those 2 to 10 pounds we put on during the holidays and keep it off and live a healthier and better lifestyle. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've never once said I have all the answers. So that's your quote, not my quote. I have so much to learn still. But I appreciate having me on, and excited for the conversation. And anytime I get a chance to hang out with Chuck and Rico, I'm all about it. So I appreciate it.
Well, no, it's great to have you on, and so many of our listeners take some time off during the holidays, and it's the weight goes on very easily for most of us, and doesn't come off quite as easy, and it's that 10 pounds that people put on quite often during December house parties and things like that, and it doesn't really matter whether you're behind the wheel or behind the desk; it happens.
It
And
does, and yeah, and you know what I always say. Man, you got to enjoy your life sometimes, right? And then there's a way to enjoy it without putting on the 10 pounds. But if you eat a cookie here or there during the holidays, or I do this myself as well. Of going to the buffet line and getting another plate full of potatoes and ham and all this good stuff that someone took hours to make. That's okay, right? It's okay every once in a while, but I hear you on some people come out of the December, November time frame and have added 5 or 10 pounds to their body and say, hey, okay, 2024 is the year. I got to do something about this. And so, yeah, would love to kind of dive deeper in that, or whichever direction you want
yeah,
to
let's.
take.
You know what? I do want to talk deeper because I think it's a concern for an awful lot of listeners that haven't figured out how to deal with it, and not just listeners, people they've never even heard of rates and lanes, but they put on. The people put on a lot of weight because it's the holidays and you may be consuming more. You're certainly consuming more calories, whether you got the calories from choices you've made at the buffet line or calories you've put into your body from alcohol. It's all high caloric.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And so, I think the big thing, there's a couple of principles that I always talk to people before we kind of get into the tactics, right? And like the deeper dive. And I think there's a couple of pieces from a mindset standpoint that I like everyone to kind of hear before we go into some of the specifics of like, all right, here are some of the actual things I can add to my day-to-day life. And some of the big things there is, number one, so many people, especially around this time of year, say, okay, I'm going to make a change to my health. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to completely flip my whole life upside down. I'm going to make all of these changes, flip my life, 180 degrees over. And I've never been able to, never sustained these habits for an extended period of time, but I'm going to, I'm going all in on it, and I'm changing everything. And for 1% of people, it potentially works, right? But for most people, because of the contextual details of your day-to-day life, especially if you're behind the wheel or you work in the supply chain of long hours at work and just family life and all these other commitments that we all have as adults, it falls off because you set yourself up to fail and you set yourself up in an unrealistic manner from day one. And so what I always tell people is, when you're trying to make a change to your health, the goal is that you make these changes and you do it in a way that you are making lifelong changes, right? And they're sustained for the rest of your life, because the worst thing that someone can do is do the, hopscotch of diets of I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off, and I'm on and off. And what ends up happening mentally, and I think we all probably can relate to this because I know I can, is when you go from on to off, it's typically not by choice. Well, maybe it is by choice, but it feels as though it's a failure. And every time you go back to try to make a change, mentally, either subconsciously or sometimes it's in the front of your mind, you're like, is this even going to be possible? Like I failed all these other times. And by the time someone gets into their late 30s, early 40s, into their 50s, they've racked up a lot of these quote unquote failures of trying to, because they're, trying to do these traditional diets that, that change everything. And so that is the first thing that I would say of like, start small and set yourself up really with the mindset of like, if I'm going to make this change, is this something that I can sustainably do for the rest of my life? And if the answer to that is no, then maybe we need to start a little bit smaller, right? And then from there, we can, build on top and stack those wins over time. The other aspect to that, and it goes right there with it, is you're focusing on progression, not perfection. So many people think, I got to be perfect. I got to do this 100%. I'm going to do this, I'm not going to miss a day, whatever it is, right? And then they get like, 10 days into it and something happens. We were talking about me buying a house, and let's say you're a pipe burst and life happens, and all of a sudden these things happen and it falls off. And then because you had this expectation in your head that I have to be perfect, I can't do, I can't miss a day. I have to do it 100% or I'm doing at 0. When life hits and you fall off, then it's so hard to get back into it because you set yourself up with this unrealistic expectation. And then it just feels like, it doesn't feel like, you're all in because you in your head, you already failed. And so the 80-20 rule, the 85-15, whatever percentage it is, give yourself some slack, because at the end of the day, even the most healthy, fit people, which none of us are trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know. Maybe Chuck, are you trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger? I'm not sure.
I'll never be Arnold, but I'm working.
Okay, there you go. So some people are going for that, but most of us just want to live a healthier life, drop a couple of pounds, and be able to play with your kids and get up the stairs without, being out of breath, right? And that does not take being perfect. If you show up and do it 75% of the time, 80% of the time, you're going to be healthier than a lot of your friends and coworkers and a lot of people around you who, don't have that same mindset. And so that is, the big two things that I would say from the get-go, and just getting your head around, you are working on progressing, moving forward, not being perfect. And I think it's going to help so many people.
That's a critical component. What you just said, Mark, is the consistency factor. I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people really do struggle with, is trying to stay consistent. I don't know whether it's the lack of having an accountability partner or just sometimes even having the lack of, I don't know, sometimes you was talking and as you was talking, I was thinking about positive self-talk, because like you say, the self-talk, which is a critical thing, right? I'm doing some weight training myself. And,
nice.
And one of the trainers that I follow, he talks a lot about having that mind muscle connection. Make sure that you're having a positive self-talk, because he was saying that, when you think that you've got to the point where you've reached your capacity, you actually have only went about 40%. You still got about 60% more left in you if you just try to kind of push through that barrier.
Well, I mean, you're spot on. I mean, like, I think everyone listening to this, I think you two both can agree that like we're all our own worst enemy, right?
Right.
Whatever is
Yeah.
going on up here, like so many times, this is not even in our health. This is just in life in general. Like our reptilian brain
That
cuts
lizard
in,
brain.
and like
Yeah.
we're all of a sudden like thinking about the 20 worst case scenarios that could happen versus what's realistic, and also realizing that like we're all just floating on this rock in the middle of space, and like, you know, it's okay if something goes wrong. You can just show up the next day and go back to it, right? It's not that big of a deal. And you know, I think something that you hit on earlier that I've been talking to a lot of our members about recently is the consistency part. And one of the things that, like, you know, you mentioned the accountability partner, like, I think those are all really big, valid points, but it even goes further than that to me. And one of like, I guess maybe not further, but like an earlier layer, right? If we're like peeling back the onion, and like the first layer that I think so many people get wrong is when they talk about consistency. When I say the word consistency, the first thing that comes to your mind most likely is I got to do it every single day.
No.
But that's not actually the definition of consistency, right? Consistent could be once a week, showing up every Monday and going for a walk. Consistency could be, yeah, exactly.
You got to start somewhere, and start somewhere and build upon that.
So, Mark, I've got to ask another question about ingestion of food. Does it matter? Because this is an age-old question, but it's never. Does it matter when we eat? Because I know there's a lot of the men and women that listen to this podcast and are in the supply chain, different ends of it. Whether you're behind the wheel or behind the desk, quite often you don't get that. You know, you've worked all day since early in the morning, and you really don't get to have dinner until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. It really does happen. And then you go to bed. Yeah. And a lot of people behind the wheel do that because they're forced to do it because of the hours of service, and no different than, you know, people that work in supply chain behind the desk. They're forced to do it as well because they don't get home till late. Problems arise. Does it matter when you eat?
Again, you know, where I look at this is like, we got to focus on the ABCs instead of trying to write novels, right? If we're trying to write novels and be Arnold Schwarzenegger and have every single aspect of our health dialed in, what I would tell you is when you eat can play a big factor, right? And it's something we should look at. But if you are just focusing on the ABCs and you are struggling to get in enough protein throughout the day, enough fruits and vegetables, enough whole grains and fiber, and drinking enough water, putting too much emphasis on eating at 8 o'clock at night versus at 5 o'clock at night or right before you go to bed, I just think your priorities are not in the right order. And what I would say for a majority of people eating is, a majority of people watching is, yeah, I think some consistency in when you're eating. But at the end of the day, if you eat, you know, 5 hours before you go to bed versus 30 minutes before you go to bed, but both meals are, you know, a 12 pack of Krispy Kreme donuts, it doesn't really matter the time, right? And so
if you're eating a 12 pack of Krispy Kremes, you can bad for you at 6 in the morning or 11.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think for a majority of people, it's more so like looking at the quality of food versus like the quality and quantity of food versus the timing of food. But I think there's also some people that, depending on when they eat, it impacts their energy level, it impacts how they feel, it impacts their ability to sleep. So those are different things that you can look at. But again, if you're just trying to drop 10 pounds and you're just trying to feel better, get more energized, and just be a healthier version of you, I think there's higher priority things that oftentimes can be easierly, that's not even a word, can be adjusted easier than, say, you get done driving at, you know, 12 o'clock at night, because that's when your hours of service are done. And it's either I eat now or I have to go to bed because I need to get back up and start driving in 10 hours. I'd say you probably should eat, right? That's going to be better for you than just, snacking on the Doritos in the passenger seat all day, because that's the food that you have. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Let me do this real quickly. I'm gonna interrupt real quickly. I forgot to let everybody know this is a live show, ladies and gentlemen. So if you got questions, you can put them down and type them into the chat. We'll see them and we'll get them involved into the show. I'm sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
I've got another. Well, first of all, I know that a lot of the people behind the wheel, especially, they want to get their time in behind the wheel and then have their dinner. They're not going to stop in the middle. They want to make sure they've got a safe place to park for the night. And more, and I hope somebody that runs a truck stop organization is listening to this show, because there's more and more truck drivers out there that are choosing not to eat at truck stops and bring their food from home, because food is so deplorable at most of them.
Well, Chuck, I was actually going to ask you that. I was going to ask a question, because you might have a little bit more insight. Do truck stops make their money off fuel, or do they make their money off of what people eat inside?
No, they don't. They make their money off of fuel.
Okay.
And
I'm starting to wonder now, Chuck and Mark, because someone posted a receipt on Instagram the other day for, and not saying that they should have been eating this anyway, but it was a large order of fries from Burger King, and
yes,
and if I'm not mistaken, just one large fry from Burger King was damn near $7.
I saw that. Well, you know what? People make foolish choices, and if you were going to, mind you, unfortunately, I have been to a truck stop, and the healthiest thing I could find in the entire building was a large package of salted cashews. And I like cashews. I'm not crazy about the salt, and I have never eaten a cashew since because I was starving. I hadn't eaten all day, and it was the healthiest of bad choices to make, because I don't eat potato chips. But yeah, Rico, I did see that, and I guess what they're doing now at the truck stops, because unfortunately, many of the truck stops they don't run restaurants anymore. They run fast foods like KFC, Subway, Burger King, Arby's, and
highly processed foods, highly processed meats.
And even, Arby's, damn well when you get a bowl of roast beef, which they will sell you, it's not it's not the best roast beef you ever had. Probably first in flavor, first in quality, and last at Meadowlands Racetrack. But I'm not saying that.
Well, but here's the thing. What I'll say is, I think that again, like my mindset is all about meeting every single person where they're at, right? And I think that regardless of if you feel as though because of your driver or just how you've set up your diet, like there are some people who, even if I was in there, well, maybe I won't say this, but if I was in the back of their truck with cooking equipment and I was cooking it for them, they'd still prefer to eat from the truck stop, and that's okay. There's going to be people who will never eat out, cook inside or meal prep at home and bring it. Like, that is perfectly okay. But here's the thing that I always say is, like, anywhere you go, there's a healthier option. Right. And I'm not saying it's the healthiest, but there's healthier, right? So instead of going to the truck stop and grab, going down aisle 2 and grabbing a Baby Ruth and a Snickers bar, go down aisle 3, grab a protein bar, grab some cashews, mixed nuts, grab a 0-calorie beverage, and, find the healthiest option that you have available to you. And what I always, what I would say is that regardless, you've got one driver, if, version A of that driver goes to the truck stop and just, says, poor me, this is the only thing I have available to me. I'm just going to get a Big Mac, large fries, and a Coke every day because I can't do anything. There's nothing healthy here. Or the same driver says, hey, I know that this isn't the healthiest options in the world, right? I've got certain barriers that are because I'm a driver and I'm always on the move. Here are things that I have to deal with, but I'm going to focus in, and every day I'm just going to find the healthiest option I have available to you. Compounded over 20 years, there's two different people at the end of that career. And that's what I tell drivers all the time. So, but
one's alive and one's dead.
There you go. Yeah.
Here's one thing, because I'm big on trying to be solutions oriented. And so I from the standpoint of, hey, sometimes you got to be deliberate about, being responsible for your health. If that means meal prepping, by all means, if you can, meal prep. If you can't meal prep, if you're on the road for weeks at a time, there are services out here that are available that you can buy. I don't know how you feel about those, Mark. Factor, for instance, and different, and they're all organic. I mean, they're supposed to be. I've subscribed to Factor for a little while when I was on the road and couldn't get home and to buy groceries and cook as much as I would like to be able to cook, but it gives you an option that now you're taking control of the, you're not just being a victim, so to speak. You're actually taking control of your health, and you're actually being proactive instead of reactive. And
Rico, I got a question for you.
Sure.
When you were ordering and eating the Factor, because I've had a couple of these, I haven't had Factor specifically. Mm-hmm. How many times you get done with a meal and you were like, geez, I'm still freaking hungry. This was not enough food, and go in and buy something for the truck stop or snack in your truck. That's something that I've wondered for other drivers out there.
I've had that happen. The biggest thing that I've had that I've had happen with that, because normally I think the protein, in fact, that I think they only give you the biggest portion of protein may be about 8 ounces or something like that. Okay. Is the largest amount of protein. But the hack that I've found that helps to keep you satiated a little bit better is getting more protein. So if that means getting protein shake or something like that to help boost your protein, and trying to keep a really great thing that I've been trying to incorporate too, with trying to help myself with my battle with losing weight is a diary. There are apps out there. There's MyFitnessPal. I recently started using a different one. I like it a little bit better than MyFitnessPal. Not that I'm getting paid by any of these people, but it's called Chronometer.
Yeah, Chronometer. Yeah, that's the other big one.
And that's a really nice one that breaks down your macros and all that stuff, and it helps out to kind of keep you mindful of all the different things as far as your micronutrients and stuff like that is concerned. But as long as if you can get your protein number up close to where the goal that it sets you, man, if you can get that protein number, that you'd be surprised at how satiated that you'll feel throughout the day. That's the biggest thing. Protein and fat. You want to try to cut back on carbs. Not saying that you got to be totally keto or anything like that, but you want to try to maybe limit the carbs a little bit more so than the protein and the fats. So if you get those proteins and fats in, you'll feel fairly good throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on there, right? If you're and I'll even add in like high fiber foods as well, do the same exact thing, right? So if you're eating protein, that's awesome. I think that's like layer one. You add in like some high fiber foods like whole grains, or even like fruits and vegetables as well. Like, you're all of a sudden like not having to eat nearly as much, because the fiber and the protein, exactly what you just said, fill you up and keep you filled as well, versus the bag of chips that's like, it's just like, I'm just gonna constantly keep eating.
It tastes great, but it's kind of like empty. And the other thing is the whatever you're drinking. Try your best if at all possible. I'm not a big proponent of it, but if you just can't drink water, maybe get you some Mio or something to help flavor your water.
I do it all. That's what I'm drinking right now. Yeah.
Or better
fruit punch flavored.
I will share something with everybody. I have a slight. It's a little more than a slight addiction to a product that I found by accident about 1.5 years ago. called Spindrift.
Spindrift.
And it's a mineral water or a carbonated water that's got just a touch of actual fruit juice. And the most any can is 17 calories. And you know what? I'm drinking probably about 100 ounces a day. And so I'm getting lots of water, and plus I drink water at the gym. So it seems to work. And I don't, because I try not to, personally, I try not to eat any carbs like rice and potatoes, although once in a while I do, I break it. But as a rule, and it's kept me away from potato chips and candy bars and all the rest of the stuff that people tend to eat, and cakes and pies and desserts. And the longer you go without it, the more you don't miss it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
And for me, another thing that helps me out as well, because I have to, and unfortunately, a lot of drivers are in a similar situation as I am. I'm a type 2 diabetic. And one of the things that kind of helped me out as well is I started wearing a constant glucose monitor.
Nice.
And being able to see actually how food affects my blood sugar real time versus having to do finger pricks afterwards has been a game changer for me.
Yes,
that really has helped out tremendously, and it kind of helps keep it in the forefront, because with the glucose monitor, it'll give you it's got alarms on it, so if you get too high, it'll go off, and just learning how different things affect you. When I'm doing a really strenuous workout, it freaked me out when at first I was like, what in the world? But when I was doing a real strenuous workout, my glucose shot sky. I mean, it was like 230. I was like, what in the world is going on? I thought I was going, but no sooner 30 minutes after the workout, I mean, it dropped like I'm in the 80s. It drops way down. So it's crazy, but it's crazy, but it's actually very informative to see what your body's doing and how it's reacting in real time, and it helps to kind of be like a prick my consciousness when I'm making food decisions as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool, Rico. Because I think the other cool thing that will happen as time goes on, you continue through your strength training journey, and you keep putting on more muscle. Is the cool thing about having a lot of muscle mass on your body is that as you consume foods that break down and have glucose in it, your muscles soak all that up to re-energize them, basically. If I won't use too much science words. So being able to regulate your blood glucose will just continue getting easier and easier as you become stronger, and obviously making those changes to your diet as well. So that'll be really cool for you. But off of what you were saying about carbs and stuff like that, is I've experimented with myself, and I think everyone's a little bit different, and it's so interesting because for me, what I found is that a lot of my carbs, actually, the majority of my carbs come from fruits. I eat a bowl of fruit in the morning. Sometimes I'll eat some fruit throughout the day, and then for lunch with some taco, I'll make like a taco bowl, and I'll have some rice in there. And I don't really eat a lot of carbs in the evenings outside of when my wife and I eat some dessert. But other than that, that's what I found throughout the day keeps me energized, along with a whole pot of coffee. So
and you metabolize those carbs differently, don't you? I mean, it metabolizes, it affects differently with fruits versus just say pure sugar.
Well, yeah. I mean, so again, I think we, I won't even pretend like I'm the expert in understanding, once food goes in through your digestive system, how all of that concentrates. At the end of the day, though, there are different types of carbohydrates, and they get broken down, and basically the amount of energy and how your body utilizes those foods and those types of carbohydrates are based off of the Dunkin' or the Krispy Kremes that we talked about earlier are very much short term and not very high impact per, I guess energy source per calorie, if you want to put it that way, versus some of the other carbohydrates that typically also have increased fiber, which can really be beneficial for, a whole bunch of health benefits as well.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because the actual raw fruit has the fiber in it that helps out. That helps you out when you're trying to metabolize it versus like a whole orange is better than the orange juice, so to speak.
Yes,
correct.
I think as well. Those smoothies that everybody drinks, apparently, now I'd like your opinion on that one, Mark. People drink these fruit smoothies, and from what I understand, you want to eat the fruit, you want the fiber from the fruit, because you're not getting the nutrition that you think you are. Is that true?
Yeah, man. What I'll say is, like, I don't know if I would be able to even to even be able to give you that strong answer. What I will say is, so many people, going and getting making a smoothie at home, where you're putting the fruit in your blender, versus going and getting a smoothie that's made out of concentrated fruit juices. There's a whole lot of difference there, right? So, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are now getting like the green scoops and, doing juicing different fruits. And, you still get a lot of the amazing vitamins and minerals. And, I think that it's a step in the right direction. For most people, would I rather you probably just eat the fruits raw? Yes. But yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Okay. Getting on another question. What's your opinion? Fasting is a big thing now. A lot of people are doing these 16-hour fasts. What's your opinion on that?
Fasting.
I think it can be an amazing tool for some, and I think it can be also a not great tool for others. If Rico came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about intermittent fasting," and you were talking about your diabetes, I'd say it's probably not the best idea with keeping your blood glucose levels under control and keeping them balanced throughout the day. If someone told me, "Hey, I want to give this a shot," and they've tried other things and this is what ends up working, I think it's amazing. I think that for right now, how I look at it, I think there's so many people that will go super, super in the deep weeds of the impacts of intermittent fasting. And how I look at it as, in general, when it comes to any weight loss, it is all about creating a caloric deficit, right? And so there's different ways that you can create that caloric deficit, and intermittent fasting is one of the ways that you do that. And what that basically is doing is it's shortening the window that someone is taking in calories. So throughout the day, you're up most people are up maybe, I guess, 16 hours, right? They sleep for 8 hours. Right. So instead of, you eating for a 16-hour period, now you're only eating for a 6-hour period because you're intermittent fasting. And so the math typically ends up, unless you go out and go to Krispy Kreme, it ends up being you take in less calories throughout the day, just because you're not giving yourself the large enough window to consume more calories. And so a lot of people lose weight that way.
I would think if you're going to go to the extreme of intermittent fasting, you're not breaking your fast with donuts.
Hopefully not, but who knows, man? People are wild out there.
Swinging on to another question. My understanding, and I need some clarity on this, my understanding is that as we get older, our bone mass density decreases unless we're doing muscle-bearing exercises. True or false?
100% true. And I'll even take it a step further, because I think even more so than osteopenia, or like the loss of bone mass, is also a fancy medical term is called sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass, right? And so as we get older, and you can take it to the extreme of grandma who can barely get off of the toilet, but you can also take it to the 65-year-old or 70-year-old who's struggling to play pickleball or do physical activities because, like they used to. And a lot of the times is because over time, and this is something, unfortunately, that Father Time, or, you know, whatever we have. It's one of those things where as we get older, everyone loses muscle mass and also loses bone density. It is unfortunately a part of aging.
Right.
And it's not something that you can completely get rid of, but there are a couple of things that you can do that you can really slow it down or push it back. So instead of you starting to happen at age 50, it starts happening at age 80, right? And, you know, or decreases, you know, you can decrease how quickly it starts happening to you. And I think you both probably can look at other friends of yours who maybe aren't the most healthy people in the world, and you're seeing it live happen to them because their quality of life
Yes.
is going down, right?
That's what brought up my question. So the next question I have, if someone has lost bone mass, bone density because of you know, they haven't been lifting heavy weights on a regular basis, can they get it back when they're older, when they're 73 years old? Will all of a sudden starting not a crazy regime, you know, but a good steady increase of weight bearing exercises, will that increase the muscle density, the bone density again?
Or is their heart beating, the blood flowing through their body? They're alive.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. The amazing thing about the human body is it's very adaptable, and regardless of if you're 99 years old or you're 20 years old, when you put stress on your body, either your bones or joints in your muscles, your body adapts to it, and it adapts by either making your bones stronger because all of a sudden it's taking in more load, or you're doing strength training and you're getting stronger, and your body's like, hey, I need to adapt to this, so next time I do it, it's easier for me, right? And that's the process of getting stronger. There's other aspects that you can do, and for osteoarthritis and like osteopenia, which is like the loss of muscle or loss of bone mass. There's medications that you can take. There's certain vitamins that you can take, for sarcopenia, and also, or for the loss of muscle mass and bone mass. Resistance training and also eating protein are the top two things when you look at the research to cut down the likelihood of that. When you put in the bone, you can also add in calcium. And I think when we talk about osteoporosis and osteopenia, that's getting outside of my expertise area. And there's a lot of amazing doctors who that's what they specialize in, and you should follow his or her recommendations. But in general, there's no age limit on getting stronger, and resistance training can come in all forms and sizes. For some people, that might just start by doing training with your body weight, and you're just resisting your body. And that could be doing sit to stands or squats, sitting down to a chair, standing up, sitting down to a chair, standing up, doing push-ups at an incline, or maybe even against the floor or from your knees, whatever that is. And then over time, you can progress that by doing a couple, like there's so many different variables. One variable would be increasing the amount of reps that you do. So instead of doing, today I did 10 squats, tomorrow I'm going to do 15 squats, the next day I'm going to do 20 squats, right? Or you can add resistance. So, you did maybe 20 squats yet last week every day. This week, you're going to hold a 5 pound, you're going to hold a 2 cans of soup, or you're going to hold a 5 pound weight or a couple of books in your hand, and you're going to do squats. And you just slowly add the resistance. And if you're at the gym, that might mean, doing a machine, or doing kettlebells or dumbbells, or even doing a barbell, right? There's no one size fits all, and so many different ways to get stronger and also just overall improve your quality of life.
Next question. What do you think of a product that's out there called creatine?
I think it can be a great tool for someone. I think in general that's leaning a little bit more towards people who are thinking about trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger than people who are just trying to be healthier. I think
I saw Arnold recently. I don't want to be
there
Arnold.
There you go. Okay.
I love creatine.
Yeah, so I think it could be really, I think it could be a really good tool, along with in general, like whey protein or protein powder if you're vegan, a pea protein.
Pea protein.
But typically, if you're eating enough meat-based protein, a lot of people do check the box on getting enough creatine, especially if you're eating red meat, which I know in general is something that a lot of people are now leaning a little bit more away from. But we all like a steak here now and then, right? Who doesn't? So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay. Do you think that people that are vegetarian or vegan are really do you think they can get the protein they need from eating nuts and beans and stuff?
Yes, I do think it's a bigger struggle, but I think there are different ways. If it's tofu, or if it's there's different vegan options that are allowing or are helping people get there. And I think every single day, the way different products are coming out are every day new products are coming out that's making it easier for these people to do that. But I won't sugarcoat it. I do think it is more difficult. And also, I think a lot of people who do lean towards being more vegetarian or being vegan often don't eat enough of those types of foods. And so they sometimes do struggle with eating enough quantity of those foods for sure as well.
Yeah.
And that would affect their bone mass, correct? If they weren't getting enough of that protein, the bone density.
I'll lean. It definitely impacts it. I would say it impacts more the muscle mass than the bone mass. But also, again, like I said earlier, that's not my area of expertise, specifically around
Right.
bone density. So I don't want to speak too much on that.
Okay.
But again, if someone if someone is struggling with bone density, they're probably also struggling with muscle mass, having enough muscle mass on their body, and all of it is a cycle that comes back around and helps do it, because your muscles are attached to your bone, and so the stronger your muscles are, the stronger your bones are, because it has to adapt to hold up and keep up with your muscles growing, and so it all works together. So yes, I would say. Yes, eating enough protein is a big impact there as well.
Okay. Now, is red meat probably the best form of getting protein?
I don't know if I would say best form. I think when you look at some of the research from like coronary heart disease, there's definitely some thoughts around cutting down the amount of red meat you eat, not eating as much versus some other proteins such as chicken, such as turkey, such as some non-red meat protein options, even fish out there, because that. But again, I eat taco meat, so I eat like 10 ground beef every single day, but I don't eat it at every single meal, right? And so I think it's just having a variety out there is something that's beneficial for most people.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's the big thing, is having variety in your diet, whether you're for anything else, just to make sure you get those vitamins and minerals, eating fish and fowl and everything.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part. What I was talking earlier about being proactive, about maybe doing your meal prep so that you can, it definitely takes being deliberate and taking some time out to actually do the meal prep. I understand me. It sometimes is tough, but Sunday is generally the day that I kind of set aside for my meal prep day, and depending upon how many meals I'm trying to make and what I'm trying to do, it's an all-day affair.
Yeah. I heard something recently I want to share with both you and our listeners. As we get older, which I am, we have a choice. We're going to spend all our time being sick or all our time staying healthy. But we're going to spend all our time doing one or the other. And I would much rather spend all my time being healthy.
Right. I'm looking at the time, and we want to respect Mark's time. But Mark, two things before we let you go, my friend.
Let's do it.
If you could number one, tell us about where people can find you and where and websites and all that information. And number two, practical things that people may be able to do, practical recommendations that people may be able to do to kind of help them burn a few extra calories while on the road.
Yeah, awesome. So you can find Supply Chain Fitness. That's my company. You can find it on any social media or supplychainfitness.com. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's Dr. Mark Manera. Manera is spelled like Panera bread with an M, super easy. And what I would say is I'll kind of take it even a step further, Rico, on the health side of things. And I'll just kind of lay out how I look at it, starting like thinking about it as like the hierarchy of needs of your health, right? And I think the first base, because especially in the trucking industry as a whole, and I don't know if you guys know this, but 50% of truck drivers don't even have a primary care doctor. And to me, that is something that so many people, it's like the first level, right? It's just going to a doctor, getting an annual physical, getting annual screenings, get an annual blood work.
Right.
You can, even if you are healthy, quote unquote healthy today, it still creates the base. So you start collecting data. So now when you go back and something's a little weird or you're feeling weird, they have data to see what your normals are and can able to go back and track that. And so I recommend every single driver find a primary care doctor that they, love, trust, and see at least once a year. And most people, I would say every single health insurance that is out there, will let you have preventative
right.
health once a year, right? The second thing is, if anyone is on medication, adhering to your medication and following what your doctor said is like the number one way for you to feel normal and okay on a daily basis, right? If Rico is not taking, if you're not taking your insulin as your doctor recommended, it doesn't really matter how many times you squat in the weight room. The number one thing you can do is just take your insulin on a consistent basis and follow what your doctor recommended, right? And the same thing happens with high blood pressure medication, with all these different things. And I'll give a real example that actually happened in my family this week. Is my stepdad's right now in the hospital recovering from a bypass surgery. He had to have 5 bypasses to his heart earlier this week.
Ooh.
And I didn't even know this. It was he had high blood pressure medication that he got and forgot to get a refill and just never took it anymore. And that was years ago. And I'm not saying that it created this problem, but it definitely didn't help the situation, right? And so if your doctor, who's an expert, recommended you to take these medications, take them as they followed. And if you have questions, go back and ask them, because there's so many people that are confused about how to take their medication, when they need to take it, why they're taking all these things. Or ask a doctor, ask your nurse, ask someone who can help you get that answer.
Right. Don't be head.
Exactly. The last two that I always talk about is be more physically active. Look at what you're currently doing and just find a way to add 10 or 15 minutes a week to whatever you're doing. So if you're right now at 0, add a 10-minute walk on, once a week. If that's too easy, add, a 10, 20, 30-minute walk a couple times a week. Go to the gym, start doing some type of resistance training. Think back to yourself, was there ever a time or a type of physical activity that I really enjoyed doing? Go get back into that, because at the end of the day, the thing that's going to keep you consistent and keep you continually doing it is you enjoying it and you making it a part of your day-to-day life or weekly life that you look forward to and you're excited about, right? And then on the diet side of things, don't expect someone to don't go Googling on go Google and find some meal plan that you have to go throw everything out of your pantry and completely start over. Just start with the basics and start with eating protein at every single meal, getting a couple of servings of fruits and vegetables in every day. Right. Cutting down the amount of soda you're drinking and drinking more 0-calorie beverages. I don't care if that's a diet soda to start. I don't care if that's adding Neo or another flavor enhancer to water. Do something, or whatever the drink that Chuck recommended earlier. Do something to cut down the amount of sugar that you're consuming and just empty calories you're consuming through your beverages. And then find ways to, incorporate more whole grains and healthy fats into your diet. So instead of getting, a burger with just a white bun, get a burger with a whole grain bun, right? That's an easy step in the right direction, right? And find those small changes that you can do consistently that don't really change your day-to-day life a ton, but push the needle in the right direction, and just be consistent with that. And I know for a fact that you will be surprised the impact that will have. And so that's kind of my viewpoint on some actionable things that people can take. And that's if you're behind the wheel or, at a in the office at a trucking company.
Cool. Well, Mark, we definitely appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was enlightening. It really, I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure that our listeners did as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I know I'll be back soon, so just keep me in the loop.
Well,
all right,
we got down below, we got the link to Mark's website if you want to go check him out.
Appreciate it.
Right there. It'll take you right over there to his website. Go check out, please go check out Mark. Give him some support as well. Mark, we appreciate you for taking the time out, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. All right.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, Mr. Snow.
Yes, if anybody needs me, if I can help any of our listeners with anything, please reach out to me on my email and put your phone number on your email, and I'll probably call you back. My email is chucksnow280@outlook.com. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back in a hole for another week.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys learned and picked up something that you can put into your toolbox, your mental toolbox, to help get you on down the road a little bit further. By all means, ladies and gentlemen, and what Mark was saying is definitely so important. We as men sometimes, and I know this is a male-dominated industry, and I'm not trying to, I'm not dismissing any of the ladies or females that we may have with us. But men, we have this whole macho thing about not wanting to go to the doctor, and that's something that we definitely have to be better at. Just on a personal note, this year has been a little tough for me. I lost a mentor right at New Year's, and my grandfather just passed this past weekend. So as men, sometimes we don't take the best care of ourselves. We just think we can just keep on keeping on. And I tell you, we have to be conscious of our health and do a better job of taking better care of ourselves. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy. It's cold out there, icy conditions all over the country right now. Be careful out there, stay safe, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and God willing, we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the flip-flop. God bless.